Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. My name is Sergei, and I was born in the USSR. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about the military draft in the Soviet Union. I already touched that topic a couple of times, and the latest video was called First Steps of Becoming a Soviet Soldier. But first of all, let's refresh a couple of Russian terms. Военкомат, which is a short form of военный комиссариат, military commissariat. So this is similar to a draft office. Призыв. So this is a military draft. Призыв. Повестка. So this is the piece of paper that's being delivered. So that's so-called draft notice. So in 1967, the length of the military service in the Soviet Army was reduced from 3 years to 2 years. And in the Soviet Navy, ВМФ, Военно-морской флот, it was lowered from 4 years to 3 years. If you follow my channel, you may remember a story about my father's military service. He is a Soviet baby boomer. He was born in 1946, so he got drafted in 1964, I believe. So his service was supposed to be 3 years, but he kind of was right there in the middle of changing the terms. So he served like 2.5 years in the Baltics. He was a guard in a quite interesting top secret place. It was a KGB listening station, and if you're interested, you can check it out, my video about it. Okay, and now back to the military draft in the Soviet Union. It happened twice a year, in May, June, and then later in November, December. So we had two. They call it весенний призыв, spring draft, and then осенний призыв, fall draft. And every male that turned 18 was eligible to be drafted, and it lasted all the way till you turned 27. Of course, there were some ways that you could get a deferral from the military draft. One was if you already married with 2 or more kids, which would be kind of impressive. You 18-year-old dude and you already have 2 kids. Another exemption from the military draft you could get if you have very old parents that depend on you, so they are dependents. So if your father is older than 60 and your mother is older than 55 and they in such a poor health or shape that they depend on you for their income, for their food, then also you can get deferred from the military draft. Then, of course, if you have some kind of poor health conditions, or if you have a poor eyesight, maybe some issues with your lungs, so for medical reasons, also you could get excused from the draft. Or, like if you're mentally unstable, something like that. And some of you probably can't wait to ask this question, that anyone from the Soviet boys ever tried to dodge the military service? And the answer, of course, a lot of kids did. I mean, you sacrifice 2 years of your prime time, you're 18, 19, and spend who knows where doing who knows what. So there were quite a few people that tried to dodge military service one way or the other. And by the way, I want to mention this kind of interesting detail. So when I was asking my father about his military service, suddenly he got emotional and told me and my brother, and none of us served in military. He said during his days, it was really not cool if you dodged the military service, because he said no girl would date you if she knows that you never served in military, because that means there's something wrong with you, or you handicapped mentally or physically. So that was not cool in the 60s to dodge the military service. But of course, you need to keep in mind that my father was born and raised in a village in the western Ukraine, where pretty much all your future is working for a collective farm for free. just doing some really hard manual labor. So in that case, going out to military was probably a way better option than remaining in that village. Now, for the smart kids, the easiest way to avoid a military draft was to get accepted in specific colleges that had so-called военная кафедра, military department. So if you get to that college, then along with your education, you also do some military basic training. And when you get graduated as an engineer, for example, you also become a lieutenant of reserve. So that way you don't serve in army ever, but you become already an officer in reserve. For example, one of my friends, Igor, he really didn't want to go to military. So he went to the Western Ukraine and got into the University of Oil and Gas in Ivano-Frankovsk. I believe at that time it wasn't called university, it was institute. And he never had any interest in drilling for oil or gas, but he figured out that that place was the easiest to get in to pass entry exams. So he went there and he never went to the military. But of course, if you didn't get accepted, and usually there'll be, depending how popular is university, you may have 3, 4, 5 people trying to get in for every spot. So there's a lot of competition. And if you didn't score good enough, then военкомат and military will snatch you up pretty quick. 2 of my friends end up serving in a Soviet army that way. One guy went to Moscow trying to get into the University of International Relationship, and another one tried to get into medical institute to become a doctor, and they didn't pass through the entry tests, didn't score good enough, and next thing they went to the army for 2 years. Out of all my friends, I know only one that really actually wanted to go to the army, but he wanted to go to the paratroopers, to VDV, военно-десантные войска. So yeah, that's the only reason he wanted to go. He wanted to become, it's like a special forces almost. At that time, they were the coolest military branch you can imagine, and he made it, and he served down in southern Ukraine, in Volgograd, as a part of Soviet paratroopers. I think I mentioned that before, that we really didn't have a choice where to go and what branch of army or navy to serve. So out of my friends, one guy ended up in Navy, and he was in Vladivostok, so it's a far east of Russia. As I said, another guy was southern Ukraine in the paratroopers division. One guy ended up in Poland. And then one guy who didn't make it to the medical institute, he ended up serving in Moscow. One went to Belarus. So my father served in Baltics, in Latvia, I believe. So people were all over the place. So earlier I already talked a little bit about повестка, the draft notice. So these повестkas were delivered by hand, not by mail. And usually they utilized people that came for the medical test or whatever. Like it happened to me once. So after I was done with my paperwork and everything else in военкомат, that local officer guy asked me like, hey, so you live in this Leningradsky rayon, Leningrad region of Kiev area? And I'm like, yes. He's like, I have a couple of повестkas. I would like you to have it delivered. So I took those papers, and next day I rang the doorbell, and the guy opened the doors all smiling and happy. And I gave him повестка, said, congratulations, you got drafted, and that smile disappeared right away. So next step after you get your draft notice, there'll be a specific date that you need to show up at военкомат, at military commissariat. So of course then you're going to have a party, проводы. Your relatives and friends will get together and drink and party to say goodbye. Before you go to the military service, then you show up in the early morning by военкомат. There'll be another 20, 50 other young recruits, young draftees, and they got on the bus, and then you go to a specific area in each big city, and then they will be waiting there for so-called buyers, покупатели. There'll be military officers showing up to take some guys with them for the military service, but that's the topic for my other video. Okay, so I hope, comrades, you enjoyed this video, maybe learned something new, and my special thanks to all my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. And we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Hey, by the way, cool merch for cool comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. Just a friendly reminder that my book American Diaries is available on amazon.com, or shoot me an email if you would like to have a signed copy. Thank you. And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.